Okay, much better. Okay, then there are verses 8 through 11 in this chapter, and they are the essence of Bhagavad Gita. Collectively, these four verses are known as Chatur Shloki. Chatur means four, Shlok means verse. So that's how they are known, Chatur Shloki. And they say everything you need to know in these four verses. So we spend a lot of time on these four verses today, and I want to make sure that we all develop a very good understanding of what these four verses are saying. Because these four verses describe the three essential features of devotional service. The first is called sambandha. Anybody know what sambandha means? In Sanskrit word.
Relationship.
Relationship.
Relationship, yes. Exactly. So the first is talking about relationship between us and Krishna. So do you want to tell me what is our relationship with Krishna? Anybody?
That we're a part and parcel of Krishna?
Very good. And the second part is?
We're servants of Krishna?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Wonderful. Yes, that's exactly right. Those are the two things that define our relationship with Krishna. The second feature is known as abhideya, which means process, which is the practice and application of such knowledge. So what is that process? It's devotional service to the Lord. So our relationship and the process to establish that relationship, or re-establish, I should say, relationship. The third feature is known as prayojan, which means ultimate purpose, the main reason, ultimate goal. That's what prayojan means. It's the result of whatever we are doing. So in this case, result of devotional service. So what is that result? Anybody? What is it that we want to do?
Go back to the Godhead. Go back to Krishna.
Go back to Krishna because we will have developed love for Krishna. Correct. So you want to develop this spiritual consciousness and unbounded, unalloyed love for Krishna, because that's how we will get there. Okay? Okay, so let's get into some details. So in verse 8, as we said, it gives us the knowledge of relationship. So here Krishna declares himself in this verse to be the source and the Lord of all spiritual and material worlds and everything in it, by saying that everything emanates from him and he's the master of everything and everyone. So that's a big statement. But now in this chapter, Krishna wants to establish his supremacy. Like, why should you love him? Why should you surrender to him? Why should you give up everything for him? Saying, because I am the supreme person. I am the source of everything. I am the Lord of everything. No other incarnation of Krishna does that. But Krishna is doing that very deliberately, not to brag, but to let us know who he is so we can devote our life in his service. So, I mean, devotees already know this perfectly. So therefore, they serve him with all their hearts, without ever being deviated from any, or deviated by, I should say, deviated by any nonsense commentaries by fools. All Vedic literature support Krishna's claim of being the source of everything, including Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and any other demigod. And also, the scriptures will tell you that in the beginning, if you can think of time zero, there was no Brahma, there was no Shiva, there was no water or fire or heaven or earth, there were no stars, there was no sun. It's only Krishna. So, because he is the original source of all, everything and everyone is under him. No one is above him. No one is equal to or greater than Krishna. Only a fool would think Krishna is an ordinary person. A Krishna conscious person avoids the company of such fools. They spend their time to nurture their faith in the company of other Krishna devotees who have that high degree of faith and understanding. So I'm going to pause and tell me, do you understand? Do you have any questions? Is it making sense? Or is it too complicated? Quiet means I already put you to sleep.
I think it makes sense. No questions.
Okay. All right. I'm assuming everyone is agreeing with Melanie. Okay. Then we'll move to verse number 9. Remember, I was saying verse number 9 talks about the process, abhideya, which is the Sanskrit word for the process. So here in verse 9, Krishna says that the thoughts of his pure devotees are always, like 24/7, focused on him without any diversion. They don't start thinking about anything else. Their lives are fully devoted to him, to Krishna, that is, and they're constantly glorifying his qualities and pastimes and form. But they're not glorifying him because they have to, but they're doing this because they get great satisfaction and bliss from always chanting his name, glorifying his pastimes, form, qualities, etc., and always enlightening one another, other devotees, that means, and conversing only about him. There's a very popular term in ISKCON, it's called prajalpa, which means talking about topics other than Krishna, which means mundane topics. So pure devotees, serious devotees, they're not interested in talking about anything other than Krishna. Because their hearts and their souls are constantly submerged in Krishna. They're not interested in anything else. They're enjoying it too much. Why would you give up something of higher taste for something of lower taste? So for pure devotees, Krishna is the highest taste. There's nothing higher. In the preliminary stage, of course, like for us, the devotees take pleasure from their service. That's why we do all these services. And we do discuss qualities, form, pastimes of the Lord with each other. It's fun, it's very pleasing, it's blissful to do that, even in our stage. Of course, when the devotees become mature in terms of their devotional service, they actually become situated in pure love of Krishna. At that time, rules don't matter, processes don't matter. They just do whatever they want because they love Krishna. They don't do this because they have an obligation or they're afraid or because somebody told them. They do it because they want to, because they love Krishna. You can think of Mother Yashoda, you can think of gopis, you can think of friends of Krishna. They just did things for it because they wanted to, because they enjoyed doing that, not because they had to. So Lord Chaitanya actually talks about a concept of seed. So he likens the devotional service to the sowing of a seed in the heart of a devotee. So I don't know, is anybody into gardening at all? Anybody? Even a little bit gardening? No? Okay. Well, at least you know that if you want to grow something, you got to water it.
Mhm.
Everybody knows that much, right? Even if you're not a gardener. So if devotional service is a seed, for devotional service to grow, we must water it. The watering is done by the process of hearing and chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And if we do that, so if you water our devotional seed with hearing and chanting of the names and glories and pastimes and activities of Krishna, Then that seed grows into a plant. And that plant grows and grows and grows and grows until it penetrates the covering of the material world. So as you know, there's an end to the material world, right? Then spiritual world starts. So it penetrates that boundary and keeps on growing until it goes through Brahma Jyoti and then Vaikuntha Lokas, finally reaches Golok Vrindavan. And there it takes shelter under the lotus feet of Krishna. So our plant, our creeper of devotional service has now reached the lotus feet of Krishna and taken shelter and it rests there. At that point, we are safe. Nothing can take us away from Krishna. So gradually this plant produces fruits, which is the love of Krishna. At this point, the devotee becomes fully absorbed in love of Krishna and he cannot live even for a moment without being in touch with Krishna. Just like a fish cannot live without water. Scriptures like Srimad Bhagavatam, they're full of narrations about the relationship between Krishna and his pure devotees. I mean, that's basically Srimad Bhagavatam, especially, is like 80%, maybe even more, about the devotees of Krishna than about Krishna himself. There's only one canto really that talks about Krishna and his pastimes directly out of 12 cantos in Srimad Bhagavatam. The pure devotees are very dear to Krishna. And the glories of Krishna, the pastimes of Krishna, stories about Krishna are very dear to the devotees. So it's a very mutual thing. The devotees take great pleasure in hearing about these pastimes, these activities, about qualities of Krishna, how he maintains his relationships with the devotees, and so on and so forth. It's almost like, we talk about young girls and boys dating each other and how passionate they get. In a more positive sense, devotees are like that with Krishna. They can only think of Krishna all the time. Nothing else interests them. Of course, again, I know you said not in the gardening, but I'm sure you all know that if you're not careful, a lot of weeds will grow in your garden, right? We know that much, correct? Somebody say yes.
Yes.
Thank you. So we have to keep the weeds out. So what are the weeds? Weeds are the offenses that we commit during the devotional service. So whether it's offenses against the holy name, there are 10 of them, or offenses against the arti or devotional process itself, is 64 of them. So the point is we should be aware of those offenses and we should avoid those offenses. But otherwise, once again, whether gardener or not, you know what the weeds do and why we need to remove them. Anybody wants to tell me what do the weeds do? Anybody knows? I mean, just from the field, from general knowledge.
They spread like wildfire.
And so what? What happens?
It damages the entire garden.
Right. They take the energy or the water away from the main plant. So instead of the main plant growing, now you got the weeds growing, as you said, like wildfire. But the main plant is not growing. That's exactly what happens. If we are not careful about avoiding the offenses, then you get entangled in those and our devotional service suffers. Then we don't make progress. As a matter of fact, Lord Chaitanya talks about a mad elephant syndrome. If you throw a mad elephant, that will be hard to do. If you send a mad elephant in a garden, what will the mad elephant do? Destroy the garden completely. So similarly, offenses can destroy our devotional service. We may have worked very, very hard at developing devotional service, but these offenses would destroy it. So we have to be very, very careful about that. Okay. Then we move to verse number 10, which tells us about the prayojan, which is what's the ultimate goal? Why are we doing all this? And of course, as you said, the ultimate goal is to develop love of Krishna, to get to know Krishna, to go to his abode, Golok Vrindavan, etc. So in this verse, Krishna talks about helping those devotees who are constantly engaged in serving him with love. Tesham Satatjiktanam, those who are constantly engaged. He says he gives such devotees the understanding that leads them to him. And he uses a very nice term, it's called Buddhi Yoga. Buddhi means intelligence. So Buddhi Yoga means connection. So Buddhi Yoga means connection of the intelligence with Krishna. So as you know, intelligence, the function of intelligence to know the right from the wrong. So when the intelligence is connected to Krishna, then we know serving who is wrong, not serving, sorry, Freudian slip, I guess. Serving who is right, and not serving who is not right. So activities of Krishna consciousness are called Buddhi Yoga, which is the process by which one develops love for Krishna and therefore gets out of the material world. As I said, the ultimate goal of Buddhi Yoga is Krishna. Krishna says that one is not intelligent enough to make progress in Krishna consciousness, but that person is sincere and devoted to the activities of devotional service, then Krishna from within, as Paramatma, gives instructions to this person so that he may ultimately come to Krishna without difficulty. You probably have heard a saying, take one step towards Krishna, and what does he do? Anybody?
He comes 10 steps forward.
That's right. Yes, exactly. You take one step towards Krishna, he'll take 10 steps towards you. So that's basically what he's saying here. He says, I will help you. I will help you. I'll give you the intelligence by which you will come to me, as opposed to getting diverted or distracted to some other place. And in the final verse of the Chaturshloki, verse number 11, Krishna says, I show special mercy to such a person being the one who is constantly engaged in serving Krishna, constantly thinking about Krishna, constantly chanting his name. He says, I give my special mercy to such a person by removing any darkness of ignorance that may be present by shining the light of knowledge. So ignorance is darkness, knowledge is light. She's saying, I shine that knowledge of light for such a person. Therefore, the implication is that the devotees don't need to be well versed in the Vedic principles. Like, who cares? On the other hand, non-devotees, even if they are learned scholars or great speculators, they cannot understand Krishna by their mental efforts or speculation, even if they did that for millions of years. Because Krishna is so great, no amount of speculation, no amount of mental activity or mental effort can help us know him. It's just too great for our mundane, limited abilities. We can know him only when he reveals himself to us. And he's saying, I reveal myself only to my pure devotees. So only by devotional service, Krishna is pleased. And then he reveals himself in the heart of pure devotee. So interestingly, a pure devotee always has Krishna in his heart. And when Krishna is present in the heart, as I was saying before, Krishna is like sun. And Maya is like darkness. There's a very famous verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita. It says, Krishna Suryasam Maya hoy andhakar, jahan Krishna taha nahi, Maya adhikar. So Krishna is like the sun, Maya is like darkness. Wherever there is Krishna, there is no darkness, there is no Maya. Just like where there is sun, there is no darkness. So Krishna Being in the heart of pure devotee removes all kinds of ignorance, if any present, and is nothing but sunshine, light of knowledge. That is the special mercy of Krishna upon the pure devotee. Okay? Now, us who are not pure devotees yet, we're trying to become devotees. Our hearts are contaminated. What are they contaminated with? Anybody knows? What's the contamination of our heart?
Like more attracted towards the materialistic life.
Right, exactly. Our material desires and the karmic reactions are the dust that has accumulated over millions of births we've had. So, material desires and our karma are the dust on our consciousness or our heart, and it's not something new. It's been happening to us every time you have taken a human birth, and you have taken millions of those human births. But when we engage in devotional service and constantly chant Hare Krishna, then this dust of material desires and karma starts to quickly clear, and we become situated in pure knowledge with all this ignorance, all this dust having been removed. There's a very famous verse that Lord Chaitanya wrote, the Cheto Darpan Majanam, which says that just like there can be dust on a mirror and you can barely see anything. But as you wipe the mirror, it slowly starts to become clear. The mirror becomes clean and the image starts becoming clear. So same thing. The devotional service starts to remove our material desires and our karmic reactions. Actually, it burns all the karmic reactions. And therefore, with our ignorance gone, our knowledge restored, we know then our identity, that we are soul and servant of Krishna, an identity of Krishna, who is supreme personality of Godhead, our relationship with him, which is that we are the servant, he is the master, and the process by which to reestablish that connection, the devotional service, and we start doing that. So the ultimate goal, Krishna, can only be attained by this devotional process. There's no other process that can do that. There's no amount of speculation, no amount of argument, no amount of scholarship, no amount of mental effort can lead us to the point where we know Krishna. Because Krishna can be only known when Krishna reveals himself. And Krishna says, I'm not going to reveal myself to any of these people, the speculators, arguers, or people thinking they have big scholarship and things like that. The other thing, try to remember, at some point in time later, Arjuna asks Krishna. No, actually earlier. I'm sorry. It's in chapter 6. Arjuna asks Krishna, you are asking me to give up all these material things. So what happens if I give it up and I don't achieve pure devotional service? Then I've lost my material privileges. So Krishna says, first of all, don't worry about it, because of whatever devotional service you do, it stays with you eternally. But even more to the point, that pure devotees don't have to worry about the material necessities of life. They don't need to be anxious about this material requirements, material needs, because Krishna will provide whatever we need. You remember from last week, Krishna said, those who are constantly thinking about me, I provide them what they lack and I maintain what they have. So even our material needs will be satisfied by Krishna, will be taken care of by Krishna, if we have that level of faith. And that level of faith comes only when he removes the darkness from our heart, which he does when the devotee establishes Krishna in his heart, which happens when the heart is completely pure completely cleansed of material desires and karmic reactions. And that all happens automatically. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to do special prayers. Krishna, give me this. Krishna, give me that. Krishna will take care of it, whatever that is. And there are many, many stories in our scriptures about that. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying therefore everybody get up and quit your jobs and quit your family. I'm not saying that. We're not pure yet. I'm just saying that if we were pure, we had that level of faith, Krishna will not let us down because he takes charge of the life of a pure devotee. And he completely frees the pure devotee from all kinds of material endeavors. He said, leave it to me now. You are mine. I'll take care of you. Don't you worry. And that's the essence of the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, those 4 verses. So I'm going to stop now and wait for questions. I hope you have some questions. I get kind of bored if I don't get asked questions. Was it that clear, really?
I have a question. This is something I've wondered for many chapters now. So when you say pure devotee, there are pure devotees who are not spiritual masters, correct?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's a choice. There are also stories about some pure devotees who did not want to have disciples, but they were forced by Krishna to take them, like direct instructions. So Lord Chaitanya, for example, told a very pure devotee by the name of Loknath Swami that no, you must take this person, Narottam Das Thakur, as your disciple. We also know from our own parampara, Gaur Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj, who's the spiritual master of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, who's the spiritual master of Prabhupada. He didn't want any disciples. But basically, after insisting and then finally threatening to give up his life, Gaur Krishnadas Babaji said, okay, fine, I'll accept you. And that was the only disciple he ever accepted. So yeah, there are examples of pure devotees with no disciples, examples of pure devotees with maybe just one, and the examples of pure devotees having multiple. It all depends upon what you want to do as a pure devotee. Okay. Any other questions?
Okay. If we do like 50% of towards the materialistic life and 50% towards the devotional service, will the 50% fruit of the devotional service will be decreased or because of the 50% materialistic life?
Yeah,
Or will that be still there so that it can be carried forward from 50% to the 60-70%?
yeah, that's a very good question. So basically, the 2 platforms. There's a material platform, there's a spiritual platform. They never meet, they're like parallel lines. It's like the 2 rails of a train track never meet because they're going parallel. So similarly, material plane and spiritual plane, they're parallel. So what happens in one plane does not affect the other plane. So if you're 50-50, then your 50% of your devotional service becomes your eternal credit, and you start at 50% in the next birth. But whatever material possessions you had, they go down to 0. Okay. Now, the only thing I can think of is that if material activities include offenses, then that will pull your devotional service down.
Okay.
Okay. But otherwise, no. For example, if you made lots of money, that does not pull your devotional service down unless you become attached to the money, which is the risk. You become attached to enjoying the money and things like that.
Is it not something we will? Sorry, someone was asking a question.
Hare Krishna. So I didn't hear what you said just now because it cut out. Could you repeat it?
Yeah, sure. I was saying that unless you become attached to enjoyment of your riches, your devotional service will not be affected. So, in other words, being rich, being opulent is not mutually exclusive with being a devotee. If you want, you can be both. And there are many, many examples of that. King Prataprudra was there. King Pundrik Vidyanidhi was there, Rai Ramanand was there. They were all kings or governors and things like that, but they're also pure devotees. But what happens is if you're not pure devotee, then you become attracted to the enjoyment of your riches. That attraction to the enjoyment affects your devotional service. So you have to be careful. As long as you keep reminding yourself, this is not my money, this is not my power, this is not my opulence, you're fine because you're giving the credit to Krishna. As soon as you start thinking, no, I did it, it's mine, I have to enjoy it because I worked hard, then you're in trouble. Okay?
Thank you.
Sure. Ram Prabhu, did I answer your question?
Yeah. Thank you. I was thinking about one more question.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
About becoming rich and becoming a pure devotee concept. As we earn money, do we not like attach to the money? Because let's say I'm working, so expecting a higher salary, that becomes say attaching to the money, right?
Not necessarily. If your attitude is that if I make more money, then I can serve Krishna more. I give more in donation. I can serve Krishna better. Right? Then you're fine. If your attitude is if I get more money, I can enjoy more, then that's a problem. Right? And the honest truth is, I'm just a very straightforward person. We are not pure. So there is that subtle desire in the back of our mind, you know what? If I get more money, then I can buy a bigger house, I can buy more fancy car, I can kind of enjoy it. I mean, that's a fact of life. So that's why we are only half devotee, right? And that's why we need more association of the devotees so we can stay on the right track at least, even if you don't want to give up your work. But you can continue to work, continue to get raises and promotions. You still have the attitude that it's all given by Krishna. It's still Krishna's plan I'm executing. Whatever I'm getting is Krishna's mercy. Whatever my abilities are is Krishna's mercy. Then you're fine. So go and become CEO. Like I tell people, go and become CEO, president, director, because understand if you're a devotee or you tell people, I'm a devotee, they say, oh my God, this president of this huge corporation is a devotee, then I want to become a devotee also. Just imagine if people like Donald Trump, Narendra Modi, Macron, and all the other world leaders and famous people, if they all stood up and said, I'm a Hare Krishna, what do you think will happen to the world? Everybody in this world will become Hare Krishna because they will say Hare Krishnas are successful, therefore we want to be Hare Krishna. So go ahead, become the president of your company and tell people I'm a Hare Krishna. That's the secret behind my success. That'll be great preaching. So go do it. Okay? Any other questions or comments? Doubts?
When we buy, like you're saying, you become a CEO, then the position offers like more luxuries, like you travel in your own private jet and all that comes up automatically. So Prabhuji, how to relate that Krishna has sent me the jet? We have to think like that, or how should we relate it?
So Prabhupada traveled in Rolls Royce.
Okay.
And he said, to me it's the same. This Volkswagen Beetle, 20 years old, a brand new Rolls Royce, to me it's the same. It's a vehicle I'm using in the service of Krishna. So it was not his attitude that look at me, I'm sitting in a Rolls Royce. It's a vehicle of Krishna. I'm serving Krishna in this vehicle. Similarly, he used all the technology available at that time. There was a dictaphone or typewriter or whatever, the most expensive he could find. Because I'm just using this in the service of Krishna. So, and that's what I was saying. As long as your attitude is just using it in the service of Krishna, you're fine. You can be the richest person in the world. But the moment you start thinking, oh no, it's my credit, I did it, it's for me, it's for my enjoyment, then there's a problem. Okay?
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Sure. Anybody else? Okay.
Prabhu, you said previously as well that our standard of living is determined by Krishna as well, right? So if you're going to be born wealthy and or die wealthy, that's not really up to you, right? Like if you're meant to be it, you'll somehow get it.
Correct. So nothing is up to us. In our ego, we start thinking we did it. So you're right. And that's what my point is, that if we continuously acknowledge that nothing is to our credit, it's all an arrangement by Krishna, then you'll be fine. The moment you start thinking, no, it's my doing, it's my credit, I have achieved this, I am so intelligent, I can plan so well, I can execute so well, then the problem comes. So if there's just two words, if you flip flop, Krishna and I, wherever you're saying I, if you put Krishna, then everything is fine. When you keep saying, I did this, I acquired this, I accumulated this, I am the most intelligent, there's a problem. You say, Krishna did this, Krishna arranged it, Krishna planned it, it's Krishna's credit, Krishna gave it the ability, then you're okay. Just that one word, that's the difference. Only one word. Okay, make sense? Yes and yes? Okay, all right. Okay, so having heard these 4 verses, Arjun becomes convinced that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he actually says it in verse 12. He says that, my dear Krishna, you are the supreme abode, Golok Vrindavan. You are the purest. You are the absolute truth. You're eternal. You're transcendental. You're the original person who is unborn and the greatest. All these adjectives, Arjun verbalizes it to tell Krishna that he's convinced. And by implication, we are being told to be convinced that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's the supreme abode, Golok Vrindavan. He's the purest. He's the absolute truth. He's eternal. He's transcendental. He's the original person who's unborn and the greatest. So I'm going to ask you, which one of you is fully convinced of all these? Say you, yes, Shilpi, I see your hand. Anybody else convinced? Okay, so it looks like
I am.
okay, Aarti, Hare Krishna. Anybody else?
I am. My internet cut, but I heard most of it.
Okay, thank you. So nobody else is convinced. So I need to ask, why are you not convinced? You cannot be convinced and not convinced at the same time. So either you're convinced or you're not convinced.
I'm convinced.
I'm convinced.
Convinced. I'm convinced.
You're not saying out of fear, I'm trying to explain, are you?
No, actually, maybe we didn't get the question properly. That could be the reason. So
Okay, so
that's where
who's
we are.
convinced that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead? That Krishna is the original person? That Krishna is the purest? Krishna is the boss of everything? Who's convinced?
Oh, that's Prabhuji. Actually, generally, I believe that even Devi Ma is also one of the Supreme Lord. So that's where it's clashing for me between Lord Krishna and the Devi Ma. So that's why maybe I'm not completely convinced right
Okay.
now.
So thank you for being so honest.
Thank you.
And so this is what Krishna is trying to tell in these verses, that he is the origin of everyone, including Devi. Devi Ma is his Shakti, his potency.
Okay.
So therefore, non-different from him, but subordinate to him. It's like the sun and the sunshine. Devi Ma is sunshine. Krishna is the sun.
Okay.
Without sun, you cannot have sunshine, but without sunshine, you cannot have sun either. So they're inseparable. But the sunshine comes from the sun. You agree with that statement? Sunshine?
Yes. Yes.
So sun is the source of sunshine. So similarly, Krishna is the source of all his energies, and Devi Ma is his energy. So in a sense, not different from him, but still an energy, therefore subordinate to him. So if you serve Krishna, Devi Ma will be very happy.
Okay, Prabhuji.
Okay?
Thank you. Thank
Sure.
you.
Sure, no worries. Okay, somebody, can you please mute yourself? This looks like dishes being washed somewhere. Just mute yourself, please. Thank you. So, by saying all this, clearly Arjuna is now accepting that Krishna is different from an ordinary soul. All his doubts about Krishna being Supreme Personality of Godhead are now completely gone after hearing these 4 verses. He realizes Krishna is the origin of everything and everyone, including demigods. And among the demigods, including Brahma and Shiva and Shaktis and everybody else. Because they're all dependent upon him for their power. Arjuna then indirectly says that he's not trying to flatter Krishna, because other learned sages and Vedic injunctions are saying the same thing. So Arjuna is saying basically that I'm not trying to, butter you up. And he in support of his statement, he cites all these sages who have said exactly the same thing. The Vedas, other scriptures say exactly the same thing. So the theme basically is that only those who take to devotional service can understand the Lord Krishna. The Mayavadis, other yogis simply can't, because they're trying to do it on their own. Krishna has to be revealed by Krishna before we know him. And he reveals himself to only his pure devotees. And for us, if we want to understand Bhagavad Gita, we must accept Arjuna's statement in this verse. So when he says Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we must accept that. When he says Krishna is the purest, he's the absolute truth, he's eternal, he's the original person, we should accept that. That's called parampara, the disciplic succession. Unless we are in disciplic succession, we cannot understand Bhagavad Gita, nor can we understand Krishna. Questions, comments? Anyone? Okay. I just hope everybody's awake. I don't hear anything. I get nervous.
We are listening to you.
Oh, okay. As long as that's true, that's fine.
I have a
Prabhuji?
question.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Oh no, I think someone else was going to say something.
That's okay. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I have a question. So I heard that there's like lots of versions of the Bhagavad Gita. If they're written by someone else as not Prabhupada, are they greatly different?
Okay. So first of all, there's only one Gita.
Okay.
As
So,
it is.
well, no. There's only one Gita.
Sorry,
So
translation.
the verses that Krishna spoke, there's no change in any of the versions that you've seen or heard of. Because they're spoken by Krishna. So that's constant. Now, what happens is, because the language is Sanskrit, people like you and me cannot understand it well. So many people have written the translation and have given their commentaries. And that's the different versions you see. But the problem is that most of the people do not accept Krishna as Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, they end up giving their own interpretations to whatever he has said, and even to Krishna. So, for example, there's one version which says there's no Krishna, there is no Arjuna. Actually, Krishna is the soul and Arjuna is the senses.
Oh.
And then that's the whole thing. Many people say, oh, he's just a great historic personality, and they give a human perspective. Many people say, oh, Gita is all about karma, how you should live your life, and how karma theory works, etc., etc. Other people said, no, it's all about gyan, how you develop gyan about Krishna and all. But Krishna says, no, I'm talking about you surrendering to me. I'm talking about you thinking about me all the time. So only Prabhupada has given the right interpretation, right commentary, right purpose. That's why he calls it Bhagavad Gita as it is.
As it is.
As it is meaning, this is what Krishna meant. So do not put words in Krishna's mouth. Do not twist Krishna's words. Do not give wrong interpretation what Krishna is trying to say. Because then you will not get to the ultimate goal. You're defeating the purpose of Krishna. Spending his time with Arjuna, explaining to him all this. And with other interpretations, you cannot answer all the questions. You cannot remove all the doubts because the message is not right. Even the same verses are there. That's why we badly needed something like Bhagavad Gita as it is that Prabhupada produced. Did I answer your question, Melanie?
Yes, you did. That makes sense. Does if you can read Sanskrit, then you don't necessarily need Prabhupada's version, or
Well, so if you know Sanskrit well, you'll understand the translation of it. But Prabhupada has so much knowledge of other scriptures, what other devotees have said in the disciplic succession. He has put all this together in a very simple language that you and I can understand. Like if you read, discounting the fact, or I should say, not understanding the fact that the interpretation is not right, but just if you read it for the sake of reading, you find the language is not so easy. It's not so easy to understand what's being said. Prabhupada's versions, they're so easy to understand. It just makes so much sense. You don't have to be a scholar to understand what Prabhupada is saying. That's the other beauty of Prabhupada's books. Prabhupada once said that I did not write any of my books. I said, what? And he added that Krishna sat down in front of me and dictated to me. And I wrote what dictated. So even the purports are written by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita as it is. So it's not surprising. Two things. One is that it makes so much sense. Second is that every time you read it, there's something new you get from the same verse for the same purport. It's all transcendental. Okay.
thank you.
Sure. Somebody, Aarti, you had a question?
Yes, Hare Krishna,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna.
Yeah, earlier on in the lecture or the talk you were giving, you mentioned how some, like a pure devotee, Krishna brings them closer. You'll go closer to Krishna, but then at times other people are not brought closer to Krishna. Sorry if I'm not making much sense, but I'm a little confused about it. I'm just.
Sorry, so tell me again, what are you confused about?
Earlier in the conversation or in the talk, you mentioned how some people are, like a pure devotee is brought closer to Krishna, but sometimes people are, why is it that some people lose interest or are taken away from Krishna? Is it their karma or is it?
Okay, I think I get it.
Yeah,
So,
sorry. It was a long time ago, so I'm still sort of confused about it. Just because I've seen so many people come through the temple and sometimes they never come back, and I just wonder why is that? And they were so like involved and pure. So I don't know. I'm just confused. That's all.
sure, I understand. So basically, there are two forces acting upon you at all times. One is called Maya, which is the external potency, illusory potency of Krishna, which is always constantly pulling you away from Krishna by showing you all these distractions like the material facilities, material desires, etc. The second is your faith in Krishna, and whatever spiritual credits you have, they're pulling you towards Krishna. So at every instant of your life, you're making a choice which way you want to go. And that's why we're known as marginal. Every instant of your life, you're making a choice. Do I want to go towards Maya or do I want to go towards Krishna? When we choose to go with Maya, then we go away from Krishna. And that can happen either on our own or because we become attracted to somebody who's pulling us away from Krishna. Or sometimes we feel because of a false ego, offended by what happened in the temple or by another devotee. If somebody said something and you take a great offense to that, or any number of reasons. But it is us who make the choice to go away. And it happens a lot when our faith is not strong and our ego is hurt. It happens a lot. Sometimes we try to go so fast towards devotional service that we're not realistic and we get burnt out and we run away. It's not for us. Sometimes we have expectation of a quick result. We don't get that and we run away. So it could be any number of reasons, but all boils down to usually us making the choice. And believe it or not, we are making that choice every instant of our life. So I don't know, did I address your point?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay.
I just needed to be reminded of that.
Sure.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Okay, Hare Krishna. Okay. In text 15, Arjun has another realization. Well, I shouldn't say another realization. It's, basically re-realization. He's stating it again, or he's emphasizing it. And that is that Krishna is the supreme person. Krishna is the father of all living entities. Krishna is the supreme controller. Krishna is the origin of all demigods who are his servants. And Krishna is supreme proprietor. He owns everything that exists. There is no existence outside of him. There's nothing that he does not own. And he says that we can understand Bhagavad Gita only if we understand these things. Therefore, once again, disciplic succession. We can understand Bhagavad Gita or its essence of Bhagavad Gita only if we follow in the footsteps of Arjuna. Only then can we understand Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna is the original person. Krishna is the origin and therefore master of all demigods and everybody else. Krishna is the proprietor of everything that exists. Krishna is the supreme controller of everything. He is everything, period. And Arjun has come to that realization because Krishna has given his knowledge, knowing that Arjun is a friend and a devotee. So what does that mean? A friend means he is trusting Krishna. And this is what Arjuna is saying, that I trust everything and believe everything you have said. And a devotee, which means he has faith that Krishna will not let him down, that Krishna will not tell him a lie. So with those two things, being a friend and a devotee, he becomes an ideal candidate. Krishna is giving him the information. Arjuna is saying, I got it. I believe it. I believe every word you have said to me. And we need to be there. If we keep doubting, we will not make progress. So we have to be there where we say, yes, I believe everything Krishna says. I believe every word of Bhagavad Gita. I believe every word of Srimad Bhagavatam. They're not stories, they're history. They're not made up facts, they are the facts. They're not going to be done for somebody's material interest. They're totally transcendental and done, given to me simply for my benefit. That's the kind of faith, that's the kind of belief we need to carry, and we learn from Arjuna to have that. So now Arjuna says, I'm thinking, I'm convinced, but maybe there are other people who will not be convinced based simply on what you have said so far. And you probably realize, maybe instead of saying that, I'll ask you a question. who are the type of people we get impressed by? Can you give me some examples? Type of people we get impressed by.
Most famous people.
Famous people, yes. Who else?
Very wealthy people.
Very wealthy people. Yes. Who else?
Maybe athletes.
Sorry?
Athletes.
At least people with a lot of abilities. Yes, absolutely.
Mm.
Strong.
With a lot of power, like political power.
With a lot of power. Yes, absolutely. What else? Good looking. We get it somehow. I mean, it's a shame to say, but I'm sure we have all done this. That if there are two people of equal merit, but one is much better looking than the other, somehow they get that favor. Male or female, doesn't matter. Somehow it is there, right? So we're impressed by famous people. We're impressed by strong people like athletes, etc. We're impressed by knowledgeable people or intelligent people. We're impressed by good-looking people, right? And we are impressed by sannyasis. When they come, we stand up. We offer our obeisances.
Yeah.
So any one of those 5 things we're very impressed by. Krishna has all 5.
All the 6.
All 5 opulences. He's the most famous. He's
Yep.
the most knowledgeable or most intelligent. He's the
Yep.
wealthiest. He's the most good-looking person on earth.
Good.
And he's also
Handsome.
most renounced, right?
Yes.
So imagine, why would we not be impressed by him? All 5 are there, right? That is why he's called Bhagavan. You know what the word Bhagavan means? Anybody? It's a compound word consisting of 2 words. Anybody knows what that means?
Means supreme.
God?
Yes, that's interpretation. I'm talking about literal meaning.
Does it mean God?
That's also
Bhagavan?
interpretation. The literal meaning of the word Bhagavan. So,
Ultimate.
okay. So Bhag means Ashwarya, sorry, opulence. Ashwarya in
Opulence, yes.
Sanskrit, in English, opulence. And Van means the one who has, or one who possesses. So Bhagavan means the one who possesses all the opulences. All the 6 opulences we're talking about. The one who possesses all the 6 opulences is Bhagavan, and that's Krishna. So why would we not be impressed by him? He's Bhagavan because he got all the 6 opulences we just talked about. Okay? So Krishna, Arjuna basically saying, I accept your Bhagavan. And actually in the book Bhagavad Gita, after it says Shri Bhagavana Uvacha, this means the God spoke. So that's what it's talking about. So Arjuna is saying, people are impressed by opulences. So maybe if you can tell me more about your opulences, if you can elaborate further on your opulences and your manifestations of your energies, then people will be more interested, maybe more attracted to you. So he says, please tell me. And also please tell me how I should, or somebody can actually think of you, know you, meditate upon you, and see you everywhere. So this again goes back to a verse we talked about last week. Now, how does one think of you all the time? How does one get to know you? How does one meditate upon you all the time? How does one see you everywhere? So Arjuna is putting this question to Krishna for our benefit. And in response, Krishna says that his opulence is limitless. So I'm not talking about types of opulence. I'm talking about opulence itself. It's limitless. It's so great that the living entities simply cannot understand the extent of his opulences. Actually, Krishna says that even I don't know the extent of my opulences. They're so unlimited. So what about an ordinary living entity? So he said, you know what? I'm going to tell you only a few of them. And actually, there's 82 opulences that he talks about. These are the most prominent ones, which can be directly perceived by the common man. So don't get me wrong. Krishna is not saying that he's physically these things. But he says that rather he's the source of the
Source of
opulence of
everything.
these things. So their strength, their fame, their wealth, etc. He's the source of that. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, that I am the strength of strong. I'm the intelligence of the intelligent. I'm the ability of a man or person. So that's what he's saying. Now, not that I'm the opulence, but I'm the source of those opulences. And then he says something very interesting. He concludes this chapter by saying that all these opulences I'm going to mention to you, they simply hint at my infinite opulence. Because all opulent, beautiful, and glorious creations, they spring from me. Actually, I should say, they spring just from a spark of my splendor. So a spark of big fire is like very, very small, tiny amount. So whatever you see in the world, anything very beautiful, breathtaking, beautiful, or strong, or intelligent, whatever, it's just tiny spark of my splendor. So what to think about me? And then he says, but you know what, Arjun? There's really no need to know all these details. My opulence is this, my opulence is that, or how things exist in their separate opulence and grandeur. Because I am the one who pervades and supports everything. I support this entire material world by single fragment of myself as super soul. So super soul, I'm supporting everything. Everything is resting in my effulgence Brahmajyoti. And he says, from Brahma, the most gigantic entity, on down to the smallest ant, they're all existing because I sustain them. They cannot otherwise exist. Which brings us back to the discussion we had about demigods and Devi Ma, etc., that they are all part and parcel and dependent, parcel of and dependent on Krishna. In one way, he's basically condemning a demigod worship, because he says even the greatest demigods like Brahma and Shiva represent only a small, tiny little part of his opulence, Krishna's opulence. Krishna is the origin of everyone, and no one is greater than or equal to him. And then he says, anyone who considers demigods like Brahma or Shiva to be equal to or independent of me commits a great offense and soon becomes an atheist. It's a big offense to think Brahma and Shiva are equal to or independent of Krishna. If, however, one thoroughly studies the different descriptions of the opulences and expansions of Krishna and Krishna's energy, then one can understand without any doubt the position of Lord Krishna. And then it becomes easy to fix your mind in the worship of Lord Krishna without deviation. So unless in our stage we're convinced of his opulence, he's the greatest, the biggest, nobody's equal to him, nobody's greater than him, he's the original person, he's the source of everything, he owns everything, he controls everything, then and then only we can understand without any doubt the position of Lord Krishna. And once we understand that, then it's easier to fix our mind in the worship of Krishna without going here and there. The Lord is all pervading in his super soul form. He enters into everything that exists. In the Samhita, it says he enters every atom in the material universe in his Paramatma feature. So actually, just to digress for a second, in our Wednesday Bhagavatam classes, we are discussing the appearance of Lord Krishna. And it says that Lord Krishna appeared from the womb of Devaki. And the question is, well, if Krishna is so great, if he's so big, he's everywhere, then how can he fit in the womb of Devaki? And the answer is he doesn't have to fit. He's already there. Just like he's in every atom, this Paramatma feature. All he does is appear. He can appear from a pillar because he's already there. He can appear from water because he's already there. And therefore he can appear from the womb of Devaki because he's already there. He doesn't have to go in and come out. He's already there. He's inside, he's outside. Even after he appeared outside, he's still in there, this Paramatma feature. So, once we understand that, it just becomes easier to concentrate our mind in Krishna consciousness, in full devotional service. And that's why Krishna has spent so much time talking about this, and I'm spending so much time, hopefully, convincing you that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's the source of everything and everyone. He's the master of everyone, including all the demigods and the Devis who represent his energy. And it is by him that the whole world is maintained. And therefore, Krishna is worshipable. He's the most worshipable form. Okay. So I'm going to stop here. I'm not getting into the 82 examples. I can probably give you one or two. He says, I'm the moon among the stars. I'm the super soul living in the heart of all living entities. Nothing can exist without me. Of poetry, I'm Gayatri. I am time. I'm all devouring death. And one very interesting one. He says, Yajna Nam Japosmi. After sacrifices, I'm chanting of the holy name.
Yep.
So chanting our name is called Yajna. Sankirtan Yajna. This is, and all the sacrifices, I am Japa.
Yeah.
Basically, he's saying all this things means that it's the best in the category. He's of all the sound vibrations, I am the transcendental Om. Among all the Rudras, I'm Shiva. So basically, like I said, many examples. We're saying, take any category. The best in that category is me, in terms of I am the source of the splendor, of the opulence of that particular thing. So hopefully that's clear. Ask me questions to clarify anything that's not clear.
I have a question, Prabhuji.
Okay, go ahead.
Gayatri is something read for generally I see is Shakti, right, Prabhuji?
Say again,
if I'm
Gayatri
correct.
is read for?
Gayatri mantra is read for a Shakti, right?
No, not how I understand it. So Gayatri is
Gayatri mantra.
Yeah, I'm talking about Gayatri
like
mantra.
Om Bhur
Yeah, I'm talking about that.
Okay.
So Gayatri mantra is the purest of the mantras. As a matter of fact, we the devotees or aspiring devotees are not even allowed to chant it until we get second initiation. We become really serious. And it's all about meditating upon Krishna and other forms of Krishna. So it's not about Devi at all. It's about meditating upon Krishna. So his Guru feature, his Lord Chaitanya feature, his Krishna feature, and his lover feature. It talks about all that. And we are supposed to meditate upon this when we chant the Gayatri Mantra. And if you can chant it purely, just like Hare Krishna Mahamantra, it guarantees us journey to Golok Vrindavan. Okay?
Okay. Thank you.
Sure, you're welcome. Any other questions?
One question. After Arjun's death, did he go to the Krishna spiritual world or the Swargam, what we call heaven? Yeah.
So Arjun, like other Pandavas, is an eternal associate of Krishna. And so Krishna has an abode in Vaikuntha. So there's two different features of Krishna. One is Sham Sundar Krishna. That's the Krishna in Vrindavan. The 200 form who plays flute. That's Golok Vrindavan. There is no opulence in Vrindavan. That he wears garlands made of wild flowers. He walks bare feet. He doesn't wear expensive clothes. On and on and on. But in Dwarka is Vasudeva Krishna, which is the 400 form, where the sense of opulence is there. He's the king there. So Arjun was a friend of Vasudeva Krishna. So therefore, Krishna's planet, Vasudeva planet in Vaikuntha, that's where Arjun lives. So he goes to the spiritual world, but not Golok Vrindavan Dham, but Vaikuntha Dham.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions?
Who else are eternal associates of? Who are
Sorry,
those?
did you say who are?
Yeah, you mentioned that Prabhuji, you mentioned that the Pandavas are eternal associates of Bhagavan Shri Krishna.
Mhm.
Who else? Who are the others? Like,
Oh, I see. Okay. Millions. So, for example, all the gopis, Nanda Maharaj, Yashoda Maya, Vasudev, Devaki,
Okay.
They're all eternal associates.
So when Krishna says, in this chapter, I will show the way to come to me. Is it of becoming such an associate, or is it how is that seen? Like how does one imagine that?
Sure. So, what does a pure devotee do? What's the main job of pure devotee?
Serve.
Sorry?
Serve.
Serve, exactly. So that's exactly what they do in the spiritual world.
Right.
That's all they're interested in. So when they go there, they continue to serve in whatever mood they were serving here. They continue in the same mood serving there. But it's an eternal relationship. So, for example, Yashoda Maya does not stop being mother in Golok Vrindavan. She's still a mother there. Okay. Any other questions or comments?
I have a question,
Go ahead,
Prabhuji.
Gautam.
Like Balram.
Can't see you.
Yeah, 1 minute. So, Lord Balram, what form does he reside in Goloka Vrindavan? Like, is he Balram himself, or like in some other form?
No, it's that same form, Balaram form.
I know.
What you see in Vrindavan, you see in Golok Vrindavan. Same form.
Okay. 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 Thank you, Prabhu.
Sure, no worries. Anything else?
I have a question, Prabhuji.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
So in this like whole chapter, we said Krishna is the supreme controller. Krishna is supreme. But then they're like related to one of the question. You also said we have a choice to make between like every second we have a choice to make between Krishna and Maya.
Correct.
So like I like I'm confused there. Like then how can we say that Krishna is supreme? Or like, yeah, that's basically my question.
That's a very good question. So Krishna is supreme, and one of the things we did not talk about is that Krishna is also supremely independent. That's another quality of Krishna. So because we are part and parcel of Krishna, we have all the qualities of Krishna, but in a very tiny amount, because we're such a tiny entity. So Krishna is much bigger than us. That's the difference in every sense of the word, and in everything, in every area, every category. But qualitatively, it's the same. So the example you can take is a tablespoon of ocean water and the ocean. What's the difference between the water in the spoon and the water in the ocean? Sorry,
Same.
same. Qualitatively, it's all the same. But the size of the ocean is way bigger than the size of the spoon.
Yep.
So same thing between us and Krishna. So we have all the qualities of Krishna, but in a very tiny amount. So because he's totally independent, we also have independence, but very small amount. So Krishna says, because it's your inherent intrinsic quality, I must honor it. So he honors it without losing his supremacy. Like just because you have independence to choose to serve him or not, it does not take away his supremacy. The reason he does that, let me ask you a question in answer to your question. Suppose, and I'm just making this up, suppose a boy goes to a girl, puts a gun to her head, and says, you either love me or I'm going to kill you. What will the girl do?
She will make a choice.
Can I hear you louder, please?
She will think what is good for her.
Okay, what will she do?
It is her
She would
choice, like
pretend.
what she wants to die or she wants to love.
I agree. But what will she do?
She'll
Normally,
pretend.
She has to
she'll pretend. She'll pretend. Exactly right. Will you be happy if she pretended to love you? Like, will you be satisfied,
No.
content? I mean, you will know, right?
No, not sure.
Yeah, you will know that she's just being forced to. So the real pleasure is not there, but I can
Yes.
pretend to have pleasure. Krishna says, I don't want pretend pleasure.
Mhm.
I don't want pretend pleasure. I want real pleasure. And therefore, I want you to come to me only if you really love me.
Yep.
So he
Yes.
says, if I take your independence away, then you'll come to me reluctantly, grudgingly. I don't want that. So therefore, I'm allowing you to have that choice. You keep making that choice. That does not take away his supremacy. Does it make sense?
Yep.
So
Yes, Prabhu.
that's what he's doing. He said, I don't want to force you. You come to me on your own, then I'm happy. So for that, he says, I'll honor your independence.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
Okay, after millions of years later, there will be a reformation that happens, right? I mean, in some class, you were saying about after these million years, Krishna will take birth, and after so many Brahmavash, there will be reformation of the entire universe, right? So at that point of time, from where the people will come to that?
They'll come from where they went. So where do they go? What is apocalypse? The material world is gone. They go back in the womb of Mahavishnu, who's lying on a place called causal ocean.
Mm.
They go in the womb. And so when he decides to restart, they come out of his womb into the material world again. According to their karmas, they get their bodies. And the whole thing starts all over again. The karmas don't go away just because there's an apocalypse.
Okay.
So you already know what's going to be, what form you're going to have. Okay. Yeah, we are eternals. We cannot be destroyed. Right? Our body can be destroyed, but we, the soul, cannot be destroyed.
Yeah.
So we have a place to stay during apocalypse.
Okay.
All right. Anything else? Okay. If there's no other questions, then we can stop here. After a long time, we're stopping almost on time. So, all right. Thank you so much. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripasindhubhya evcha patitanam pavnebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hey, Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, everyone.
Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.